Morning, Doctor Who fans, and welcome to a Who Universe news. I wanted to get this news video out because, well, we're coming up to the end of the season, and more importantly, the synopsises for both Wish World and Reality War both come out, and we basically know what synopsis is, sort of some new details about the Reality War and why this episode could be very important going into what happens with the show heading into 2026 and beyond. How when we can expect more episodes from the show, nothing else come out from Doctor Who after the Reality War. So we'll see how we end up there. More importantly, the Interstellar Song Contest is tonight's episode, and for those who are trying to avoid BBC iPlayer until in the hopes that BBC One does show the episode tonight, the reason why I say hope is because, well, the FA Cup finals tonight this afternoon, and there's a very good chance that, well, hopefully it's not going to happen, but there's always that possibility that it will go in overtime. They run out of time to show Doctor Who and they have to go straight to Eurovision, which I hope doesn't happen. I hope that with the time slot they've given for the football match, hopefully will be enough to be able to make sure Doctor Who can remain on set, can at least go out at 7:10 like advertised, and will at least everyone gets to see this episode on BBC One for those who want to watch it this evening. So fingers crossed BBC One will not delay in showing this episode. With that said, we did have some images come out for the Interstellar Song Contest. I mean, to be fair, I mean they're mostly, I'll be totally honest, they're kind of more, there's a lot more spoiler-free images than there are revealing spoilery parts of the story. So that's good. So at least they're spoiler-free in the images, which is good to know. So you won't get spoiled at all by looking at these images. I mean, it's just, I guess the only thing you can take away really is the fact that they've made it feel like an actual Eurovision atmosphere. What you're going to see tonight, funny enough, if you're watching Eurovision this evening, you're going to get a similar from this story that's going to carry over to the actual Eurovision that's going to be showing this evening. So yeah, you're going to see something along those lines regardless. And also, more importantly, let's not forget, we're going to see appearances from Rylan and Graham Norton. Yes, Graham Norton actually shows up in this episode. This is the same guy, by the way, who interfered in one of the Ed Matt Smith stories back in 2010. Yes, that controversy, if you remember that year. But yes, he actually properly appears in Doctor Who, which is great. So this will be the first time we're going to see Graham Norton actually physically appear. That is pretty much all I'm going to really say about the Interstellar Song Contest, because Russell's already said in the last few days or last few weeks, you know, especially if you're trying to wait for the evening showing of the episode, is to try and stay offline, because there's going to be a lot of stuff being spoiled, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's already being spoiled as we speak. If you're one of those people who is hoping that BBC One shows it tonight, then try to stay offline if you can. But there is the slight chance that you might be forced to watching on BBC iPlayer anyway, because should the football match pull Doctor Who from the schedules, then yeah, you're going to be having to watch BBC iPlayer in order to see the story, and then everyone gets to see this story, because I mean it's an important story. So I like to be hopeful BBC will understand how important this story is. We do obviously have to also, and speaking of the whole song contest, aka the real life one, Eurovision. Now, originally, Ncuti Gat was supposed to be our UK jury for Eurovision as of this evening. But unfortunately, things have taken the turn for the worse, because it seems as though Ncuti Gatwa, out of nowhere, pulled himself out of the Eurovision jury's role, mainly because, well, the only thing was essentially because of unforeseeable circumstances, which we're not really too sure what that means yet. We don't know why. You know, we don't really know what those unforeseeable circumstances are when it comes to Ncuti Gatwa. Nothing's been explained why he's pulled out. All we basically know is that basically pulled out last minute, and they've got Sophie Alex-Bextor to take on that role now, because she has the kitchen disco woman from Radio 2. She's now going to be taking responsibilities of the role that Ncuti Gatwa was supposed to be doing this evening. Yeah, it's, like I said, it was a very bizarre last minute weird situation. Ncuti Gatwa would pull out of something that would have nicely tied in the fact that Doctor Who was doing their own version of Eurovision, and then you would have had the Doctor represent the country, given the results for our actual real life Eurovision. Fortunately, that's not going to happen, and I'm also curious for him to pull out this soon. I'm wondering if there is actually a reason as to why this is. I'm wondering if there's more to it, because it's funny how he's pulled out last minute, but yet he hasn't come out himself. There's obviously something that, yeah, I feel like there might be something more to this, because it just seems out of place for him to randomly just pull himself out after, knowing how excited he was for this. Pretty much what's happened, and either way, Sophie Ellis-Bextor will do a good job. I know she will, because she loves Eurovision, so she's obviously going to be very happy about it. It's just unfortunate that we're not going to get our very own Doctor Who take on that role this time around. But yeah, hopefully everything's all right with Ncuti, and hopefully he'll come out in the next few days and let us know what's going on. Hopefully we'll see. Hopefully you'll let us know what's happening. Of course, we have to talk about the upcoming episode, Wish World, because yes, Wish World finally got its transmission time confirmed as 6:50 next Saturday on BBC One. So it's slightly earlier than this weekend. I've got, like I said, slightly earlier. And in terms of what the synopsis is given, they haven't really given too much on the BBC end. Culturebox kind of put more of like a longer sort of description as to. So in terms of the synopsis, this is what they're saying following the conclusion of the Interstellar Song Contest. There might be some clues there. The great day has come, the most important date in history, 24th of May, 2025. Clock is ticking. Everyone's preparing for the joyous tomorrow when the whole world will change forever. Welcome to the strange new world in which the old say there are many slips. Twixt cup and lip gains a terrifying new power. Even when a good outcome seems certain, things can still go wrong. What are the Bone Beasts? You may have seen those in one of the trailers when they first advertised Series 2, well, this year, that is. Why is Mrs. Flood hiding in the sky? What secrets do the deposed keep? Very curious about that. Why is the mysterious message echoing across time and space saying tables don't do that? Traps are sprung, old enemies unite as the Doctor and Melinda finally arrive home to find a very different world. Can the Doctor see the truth before midnight arrives? Now, a lot of people took that final quote, before midnight arrives, and thought, oh, this is adding on to the whole. I don't think it's related to the Midnight entity. I don't think it's anything to do with that character at all. I feel like we've seen that character this year. I don't think they're going to bring the character back for the finale unless I'm wrong. Somehow he does tie in, which I don't think he is. I don't think he would be tied in such a storyline with Mrs. Flood. I think the Midnight entity's got nothing to do with this, in my opinion, but there you go. But anyway, what was really interesting, even more interesting about this story is the cast list, right? Because there are a couple of names in this cast list were very telling, particularly the fact that, well, you've got, obviously, from people that you would expect to see, like Ruby Sunday, Claire Sunday, Cherry Sunday, so the whole Sunday family's there. Kate Stewart, you've also got Colonel, obviously also returning. Shelley Ann Biggs, also from Unit, returning. Mel Bush also coming back, which is interesting because Kate, when we heard from Kate about what was going on with Mel, she kind of said she was on an assignment. So I'm interested to see Mel's perspective, what she was up to, because considering this will be the first time catch up with that character since the Sutex stuff last year. So it'll be interesting to see what she has to say following that assignment. And also another interesting name that's in here is Poppy. Captain Poppy, that is, from Space Babies, is in this episode. Very interesting because she was also credited in the Interstellar Song Contest. So it makes you wonder, why is Captain Poppy popping up all of a sudden? Like, what is the connection there with this finale? I suppose it'll make more sense, perhaps, following the Interstellar Song Contest and heading into this story. It'll make even more sense as to why Captain Poppy is involved, considering she's one of the Space Baby crews. So and also you'll notice that when they credit her, they're not crediting her as Captain Poppy, they're crediting her as Poppy. So I'm wondering, and this is just some speculation here, Poppy we are seeing is actually Poppy before she goes into the Space Babies and becomes the Cap. Could this be Poppy before she was a captain. I believe it's possible. That's what we're looking at in these episodes. We're looking at, but yes, but in terms of the names that really were striking, what was really interesting is the fact that Conrad is in this episode, which is very telling because we saw in Lucky Day, Mrs. Flood allowed him to escape by letting him escape prison because he keys to unlock his cell. So now, because of that whole confrontation between Conrad and the Doctor in Lucky Day, now starting to, I think it's become more or less confirmed, probably going to see his reality that he was teasing in Lucky Day. I think we're going to finally see reality that he said he didn't accept the Doctor's reality, but he's going to make his own reality with Wishwell. So I'm very confident we will see him and Mrs. Flood team up in next week's story. And it basically adds more weight now that he's been cast for this episode. And then, of course, like I said, you've got Mrs. Flood in there, who I'm pretty sure is going to be under a completely different name as we head into next week. So once the reveals happen for the Interstellar Song Contest, should it go out on BBC One, Mrs. Flood will be referred to as somebody else, in my opinion. But then, of course, we also have Susan Triad, woman who we saw last year being possessed as a mummy for Sutekh, but then as soon as she was free, basically her normal self. I find it very interesting that Susan Triad is in this episode, considering many of us thought that her plotline was finished after we saw multiple versions of herself scattered through space and time last year's series. So it's interesting that Susan Triad is going to have a part to play in this finale. What is her reason for being there? I hope we'll find out very, very soon, because it's very interesting, nevertheless, that Susan Triad is making a return next week's story, considering the fact that we haven't seen her, and then obviously when Sutekh's destroyed, she returns to her. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And also, this episode is also going to introduce a member of Belinda's family next week, which could be her mother. We're not too sure which relative it is. They have cast some member of her family, so I think it's safe to say we are going to be meeting potentially her mother next week, which will be interesting to see, because usually when the Doctor meets their mothers, it usually doesn't end well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this time around when it comes to the Doctor meeting Belinda's mother. Will she accept? We'll find out soon enough. Pretty much what we can expect in terms of the cast list for next week's story as it airs at 6:50. Some very interesting names in there. Obviously going to tie into the reality war, which we know it's going to tie in with that story as well, because it's a two-parter. So of course they're gonna, in terms of now of course moving forward to the reality, we do need to obviously talk about this story, because there is a very good reason for me to bring up this story, because, well, we just found out in the last, this particular story, the reality is going to be is not going to be getting an 8 a.m. BBC iPlayer release. This is going to be the only story this year to not go out on BBC iPlayer, the BBC One showing, which means that this episode is going to be simulcast between BBC One, BBC iPlayer, 450 cinemas across UK and Ireland, and Disney Plus on a prime time slot on Saturday the 31st of May. That is, and also it's an extra special length episode, which a lot of people are questioning whether or not that tease a regeneration for Ncuti Gatwa. Nothing's been said as of yet whether Ncuti Gatwa is indeed leaving the show or not. I mean, it's been up for a debate for the last couple of weeks. Is he going to stick around? Is he leaving? Is he moving on to do other things? We don't really know, but hopefully. But mind you, at the same time, the fact that they're being very quiet about Ncuti Gatwa's future for Doctor Who, and also because of his recent finale, this is what Russell said. He says that the following: the Doctor's doomed, Belinda's lost, Ruby is trapped, Unit are powerless, the unholy trilogy rules supreme, and the Underverse is rising. Now we can all experience this devastating climax together, all at the same time, with a unique worldwide premiere, which is funny that Russell says worldwide premiere, because that's the exact quote that the Toymaker said in the 60th anniversary. Does that confirm his return? We'll have to wait and see, but I wouldn't be surprised by him saying that, whether that's a hint towards the Toymaker's comeback. I can promise shocks, scares, and revelations off the scale. Come and have fun. So that's basically what we know so far about the reality war: that the Doctor's doomed, Belinda's lost, Ruby's trapped, Unit is powerless, Universalist, the unholy trilogy are going to reign supreme, and the Underverse is rising to the heavens. What does it all mean? I'm sure we're going to find out very soon, because I mean, none of us really know what the Underverse is. Maybe next week we get to have a look at this for ourselves in Wishworld next week. I feel like we will, because they're not going to leave us hanging and guessing what the underworld under the Underverse is. So we're going to obviously need to see. That's all they're saying in regards to the reality. 450 cinemas and of course Disney Plus International. So there you go. That's how they're saying about the reality war so far as we build up to that finale. Following the 31st May's episode of Reality War, Doctor Who Unleashed have officially confirmed they are going to be doing a very special episode talk where they're going to be celebrating 20 years of the revival series of Doctor Who, or the New Who. This is what they're saying about this whole special that Steph Palin has made for Doctor Who Unleashed. It says, Stephen Palin will host a special edition of Doctor Who Unleashed to celebrate the last 20 years since Doctor Who returned. Palin will be joined by a host of cast and creatives played a part in bringing the show back, including past Doctors David Tennant, Jodie Whittaker. So he'll be chatting to Jodie Whittaker and David Tennant, so he'll be catching up with Mr. Tennant again. Billie Piper, Pearl Mackie, who if you don't remember who she is, she's Bill Potts. And then you have Mandip Gill, who was Yaz, Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor era. And then obviously he'll also be chatting with Stephen Moffat, Chris Chibnall, and also the current Doctor Ncuti Gatwa, along with Vanessa Seff, as well as Russell T Davies, about the last 20 years of Doctor Who. In fact, they go on to say, as well as chatting with the stars about what Doctor Who means to them, Palace will reveal secrets from behind the scenes with interviews those who worked behind the camera to bring Doctor Who to life. Then, of course, when Russell was talking about this episode, Doctor Who Unleashed, he kind of said, after the series climax ends, it's great to celebrate 20 years that led us here. I hope this is a party for faithless viewers, Galaxy of Stars, Doctors, companions, Billie Piper reuniting David Tennant, and making of our first ever Dalek. Man, this is going to be cool. I feel like it's going to be a really cool Doctor Who Unleashed, in my opinion. And then Stephen Palin kind of added, what a joy to be given the Unleashed treatment to 20 years worth of Doctor Who history, to see the lasting impact this show has had on those who helped bring the magic to the screen has been a privilege and a reminder of just how much the show means to so many. So yes, this episode, by the way, this particular episode of Doctor Unleashed is not going to be airing until June, means that this is likely to air first Saturday of June, be Saturday the 7th of June, which is going to be the first Saturday of June 2025. But then again, 1st of June, because funny enough, next Sunday, or the Sunday in the week after Sunday, is going to be the 1st of June. So there is a chance they could air it first day of June. So the very next night after the series finale, getting this special, there's a very good chance that could happen. So we'll find out if that ends up happening, because we're not going to know for sure until schedules have come out from BBC Three's end about whether this is going to air on the 1st or whether they're going to wait till the 7th. We don't really know how they're going to schedule this, but hopefully we'll find out soon. Just as I'm making this video, in the last couple of hours, we've had a new report from the Mirror. What is happening following series 2 of Doctor Who? And it's very, I'm going to admit, it's going to be interesting to see how people react to this, because I feel like this is very light, considering the person who's reporting this is the one who also has reported. So essentially, despite ongoing concerns about falling ratings, uncertain cast futures, and potential end of the Disney Plus co-production deal, the show is reportedly not being cancelled, and that it's said to be taking a pause until its return in 2027 with 2 additional series. Whether or not Disney stays, the expectation is the show will continue. There will be a gap where scripts are finalized, episodes are filmed, and the editing process will take place. We will be back. The wait won't be forever, just a big pause. Yeah, this is obviously going to lead into a official announcement from BBC, because obviously the BBC haven't officially announced the recommission of Doctor Who for series 3 and 4 yet. Obviously they're going to have to make an announcement about this, because remember, they haven't officially announced these future series yet. Russell talked about in one of the Doctor Who magazines where he said he was working on a SIP draft for a script and talking to multiple writers for an the next series. So we already knew he's been planning some stuff for Series 3 ahead of. Then also they talked about the possibility of an absence for the Christmas special this year, that the show has skipped the festive period since the 2025 revival. Instead, fans will reportedly be treated to the new spin-off, The War Between the Land and the Sea, which apparently the sequel, that whole spin-off. So hopefully they'll come out and say something. Thanks for watching, and catch you all in the